the shadows, but a system built in plain sight, refined over generations, whispered into your thoughts, injected into your choices, and stamped upon your identity. What if I told you that the greatest lie ever sold is not a headline or a policy, not a politician's speech or a media spin, but something far more subtle and far more dangerous? That this lie is so embedded into the fabric of our reality, we mistake it for truth, we defend it, we build our lives around it, and in doing so, we willingly surrender our autonomy, our purpose, and even our happiness. In this video, we're going to unravel that lie. And more importantly, we'll explore how society has quietly learned to control not just our behaviors, but our belief, our dreams, and the very way we see ourselves. This journey will take us from ancient philosophical reflections to the cutting-edge insights of modern psychology and sociology. And at the end, I'll reveal the most powerful truth of all, one that could shatter the illusion and free your mind. But you must stay with me until the end. Because the final revelation is not only the most important, it's the one they never wanted you to hear. Let's begin. It starts innocently. You're born into a world that's already in motion. By the time you can speak, you're surrounded by language, norms, expectations. You're told what's good and what's bad, what's acceptable and what's shameful. Your mind, still tender and open, begins to absorb it all. You don't question it. You don't yet know how. By the time you go to school, the machinery is already running. You're taught to obey, to sit still, to follow instructions. You're rewarded not for questioning, but for compliance. You're praised when you conform, correct when you stray. From grading systems to behavioral charts, you are conditioned, subtly but consistently, to seek validation from authority. Renowned psychologist B.F. Skinner once demonstrated how behavioral reinforcement could shape not just actions, but identities. Society took note. Today, this method is not locked away in laboratories. It's in classrooms, workplaces, even in your social media feed. The likes you chase, the trends you follow, the outrage you echo, they all feed a cycle of external validation. But have you ever stopped to ask, who decides what is worthy of approval? This is where the lie begins to take form, that your value is determined by how well you fit into the system, that your success is measured not by your fulfillment, but by your productivity, that your identity is a product of your profession, your appearance, your possessions. From billboards to textbooks, the message is consistent. Be what we expect, and you will be rewarded. But what happens when you don't fit? What happens when your spirit whispers truths that contradict the narrative? Most people suppress that voice. They fear rejection, ridicule, or worse, irrelevance. Philosopher Michel Foucault wrote extensively on the concept of social control, not through force, but through normalization. Society doesn't need to chain you, it just needs to define what's normal. Once that standard is accepted, anyone outside it is labeled deviant, dangerous, or broken. Have you ever felt like you're living someone else's life? That you're chasing goals you didn't choose? That your passions were buried under expectations long ago? That discomfort is your true self stirring beneath the surface. And here's where the deception deepens. Society convinces you that your dissatisfaction is your fault. That if you're unhappy, it's because you're not trying hard enough, not thinking positively enough, not grinding, hustling.
Oh, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. And I'm up in heaven right now. And good coffee, clean water, fresh air, pleasant music in the background. So how you doing, right? Are you conforming? Are you a good piece of commodity, right? What do you think? Now, you're Sensei Al Bob, that's me, and don't believe a word I say. I'm just here to entertain, right? Entertain, amaze, and amuse, right? And sprinkle a little overstanding onto the picture that you're confused about. Now, why I'm still alive, I've been, I've died 7 times, and about 4 times I was, basically murdered in those points. But I kept coming back, and I kept fitting in to the equation in my own way. Right? I was servicing the you know powers that shouldn't be, the hidden hand, whatever you want to call it, Hail Hydra, and I was and still am the loyal opposition. Now, what I am loyal to is love's co-creation. Now, love's co-creation created everything, right? And when you read the Bible that everyone has basically, sold their soul to, know, there's only it. First of all, it's a code book, right? It's like the Enigma machine, that King James is. And the Old Testament, is basically the Torah, right? Which is the roadmap for the 12 tribes weren't known as the Jews or the Israel until much, much later. They were 12 tribes. Why were there 12 tribes? Because there's 12 signs of the zodiac, right? And science was basically created, on the foundation of astrology, right? Astrology led to astronomy. Astronomy led to math because to chart those stars and to understand where they were going to be, how they were going to do, what repeats, what doesn't. And so that's where we're at. We're at this very interesting time and space where we are no longer in the age of Pisces. We're in the age of Aquarius. And the age of Pisces is basically based on flowing through and getting what you're told you deserve with fear and anger and ego. Whereas Aquarius is to overstand the situation from above, to see what's going on, and to be there with empathy, to be there for your fellow, be the good Samaritan. Anyway, so I'm out and about. And it's rainy, sunny, rainy, sunny, rainy, sunny, rainy, sunny. We've had some pretty interesting thunderstorms, but nothing close to what areas around us have had. So I thank the powers that shouldn't be, and mostly I am a doula to love's co-creation. My life isn't about me, it's about how I can serve love's co-creation. That's what it's about. Just had a really nice breakfast. So, any opinions out there? Now, AI, what do you think? I'm all in on AI. AI has been around since Alan Turing. Right? Alan Turing created, he was he was a mathematician, but not really. What he was all about was puzzles. And he, in the 20s, wrote two theses when he was in Oxford. I'm not quite sure he was in Oxford, but a high whoop-de-doo school, right? And first he wrote this, I forget what it's called. Let's see. Let's ask. Google. What were Alan Turing's two most well-known books that he wrote in the 20s? Based on research, Lantern did not write any well-known books in the 1920s. He was still a young student during this time. Mm. What did Alan Turing write about algorithms and the golem? 1936 paper on computable numbers with an application to extinguish. Can you read that? What was Alan Turing's book called The Golem? Golem, the form of cyborg, a note on the cultural. So Google is not always forthcoming. I guess I had to go to Wikipedia, but enough of that. We're in a very interesting time because we're no longer the Piscean age, we're in the Aquarian age. And Aquarian is to understand your worldview through empathy. Pisces was to fear your worldview through ego. So that's kind of where it's at. And, kind of coffeeed out here. Our coffee's good, not great, but good. And so, and in heaven, coffee should be great. It should be heavenly, right? Anyway. Uh, so, how about some thumbs up? There was a thumbs up, and now it's gone. What happened? Come on, guys. Subscribe, like, put something on the chat. Let's have a conversation, right? And basically, all the conflict that's going on is just, as Jesus said, there's always wars and rumors of wars. And it's the times, there are all these folk in the messianic world that it's end times. Be ready. Always had to be ready, not for end times, but to be your best in service to love's co-creation, right? I don't like using the word God. I'd rather use the word dog. So the real deal about the higher consciousness is that you're part of it. And every day in every way, instead of following the norms that are put down to control you, you should be enabling the covenant of love's co-creation to enter your three minds. Your heart is the CPU. Your gut and the billion of little creatures in your gut, that's your hard drive. The cottage cheese between your ears is your brain. Is not the be end and end all of what you are. All it is the RAM, random access memory. That's why your eyes are up here, your ears are here, your nose, your taste buds. It's all there to be able to deal with the thing right in front of you. Right. The others is where you should be putting most of your concentration on. Is your heart. And I just had heart surgery, so and I'm just about to go see my heart surgeons, and so anyway, that's where it is, right? Where are you, right? What is going on, right? So anyway, oh, I can't think of anything other to say unless you say something. This, Dreamy Dreamland was all about to have a community and a way to communicate, right? To bring forth, because the only thing that's going to save the human race right now is community, not war, not conflict, not being in one silo. My silo is better than your silo. You know, to be there for everyone, even people you don't like, even people you don't agree with. You got to be there for them, right? Anyway, oh, I can't think of anything other to say. Except maybe I'll see you later this afternoon, around 3 or 4 o'clock, maybe. Who knows, right? So remember, let's pray. Close your eyes. See the imaginary mirror. That's where you have your dreams. And if you can visualize it right now, you can walk through it, and you're in your superconscious mind. Not just you. Yeah, your superconscious mind. That's your library, your akashic records, right? And then to the right of you are these 9 doors, right? The 9 doors, and one is open. And that is your superconscious mind there. You go into that little vestibule, there's steps, you go up, there's a bridge, you go over, and then you walk down into your superconscious mind, and it is your sanctuary of your own choosing. It's where you can get away from the norms, right? The norms. Right? So, yes, let's see if we can find Cliff High. Do, 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 do. Do, do, do. Cliff High's YouTube. Gave me Cliff Highs. Uh, okay.
Mix warm water, baking soda, and these 4 herbs to fix toenail fungus at home in record time.
Oh, record
Did you know
time.
toenail?
More than simply a capture, okay? MindWoo is taking people into a new paradigm of thinking, giving them new skills, giving them analytical tools, applying a critical perspective and critical analysis to conclusions. Now, here's our problem. When Woo dominates, as in sci-fi world, which we will get to in the course of a few minutes in this video, and in the course of 64 days, I believe, from today, we'll enter sci-fi world. Our spaceship you're now on will land, and we'll be there at sci-fi world. And this sci-fi world is basically dominated, as is universe, by Woo. things we do not know, things that are unknown, where we can only guess and speculate, apply rules, reason, rationality, tools, analysis, assays, and then form conclusions. In the world of woo, though, there's times you got to form the conclusion and then do all the assays and stuff in order to validate the conclusion, but you got to operate on that conclusion, being willing to change it as you go during that process of assay, being willing to pitch it out as soon as you find something in that assay that says you should, before you've done all of that assay, right? So the Japanese, unfortunately, will be socially, culturally at a disadvantage in a world of woo. I bring them up only as an example. Japanese, I've had many business dealings with the Japanese going back into the 70s, and I've had martial arts dealings with them going back into the 60s. So we're talking a long damn time, 50 years, half a century. So I know the Japanese character, and the Japanese, I think, have a truly marvelous mechanism for approaching reality, as long as that reality is not swamped with woo. And that method of approaching is they think and they think and they think and they think, and then they plan and they plan and they plan and they plan. Then they conduct tests and tests and tests and tests and tests. Then they do their designs, validate their designs, and then they do it. Okay, so at the time they do it, there's virtually no unknowns. It's the level of success is in a normal business situation is really shot way up by this process. Doesn't mean they don't screw up, doesn't mean you can't get off on a wrong path and get your whole organization geared into it, Microsoft phone, and it, and it doesn't materialize, right? Japanese are not 100%, they're not foolproof, but their approach is very rational in a business environment. But unfortunately, we don't have this structured business environment and a structured reality anymore. We're in sci-fi world when our vessel that we're currently in lands in 64 days. And in sci-fi world, you step out, you open up the door, and the woo floods in, and you're immersed in it. You swim in it, you breathe it. You extrude it through your skin. Woo is everywhere, okay? And so you have to learn to do woo stuff, which means that you see something, it triggers a thought, you examine that thought, the thought seems reasonable, you bounce it off of the stuff that you see coming in, and you form a tentative conclusion.
This is what
so you see
what he just
the
said.
CCP, or see reports about the CCP freaking out in October of 2019 and doing all kinds of strange stuff, ordering vast quantities of vitamin C and doing all kinds of stuff. And this is in October of 19. And then it gets worse in November. By then, instantly when you see this happening, you say, they're freaking out. I recognize a freak out. I've been there. I've seen that kind of activity, right? I've seen the emotionally disturbed individual. And this CCP at that point looked like an emotionally disturbed individual multiplied by a few millions. And so you think, okay, major freak out. They've got to have something to freak out over. Then you see that it becomes a disease. Then you start forming these conclusions. And then so you're ready, as other people are just getting the analysis, just getting the word of stuff coming out on the upper edge, the exposed part of society, and you're already reacting. You're already ordering off of Amazon 2 months ahead, 3 months ahead of anybody else. You got your toilet paper stash. You never run into that issue because you are perceptive of the indications that behavior pointed to. And so,
And
so you
was
do
talking
everything
about
right,
it.
and there
If
you
you're
go.
watching
Now
him back
around
then
you,
in 19,
and you tell
he
people,
was going
you
on.
say, "Hey, people, shit's happening. You better pay attention." And of course, they don't, and so it takes them a while, and we get into the mess that we're in at the moment. Now, that's an example of reacting to woo. All right, there were just reports on the internet and reports on the deepest, darkest, most perverted, most perverse, most foul, most evil part of the internet. And yet it allowed me to be 60 days ahead of the earliest people in the U.S. in reacting to this. And the U.S. is reacting to this as a nation in March. And I'd had this thing
in hand for 5 months at that point. So this process, I still use critical thinking. I still use first principles thinking and other analytical tools, but I will allow myself to have a conclusion that's seen. So these are like battlefield kind of conditions. This is the way you have to think in a martial arts situation. You have to you see something, and the idea comes to you that that's not a real strike. That's a feint. You don't know. You can't stop and analyze what makes you think in that brief instant that you react to it, that's actually a feint and the strike is going to come from somewhere else. But there's something that tells you this, so you trust it because it's worked for you in the past. It's a body memory kind of a thing, right? It's intuition. It may be that you saw a twitch in the guy's eyes, but you can't stop and analyze all that in the process of it. And that's the way it is in the woo. As the woo is immersing, or as you are immersed in the woo, you have to start learning to swim in it as you go along. Some of your conclusions, many of your conclusions are going to be very wrong. Those of us that do make good conclusions in woo will attract a following simply because of this herd mentality. The 75% of the humanity that doesn't want to think outside of the box, doesn't even want to acknowledge the box, just wants their hot dog and their beer and their sports without the political crap in it. Those people are the herd is upset. Their sports have politics in it. Their beer is sapping their testosterone, and their hot dog is poisoning them. And their sky is filled with chemtrails, and their politics makes no sense. Their food is bad. Their money is bad. They've been forced to sit on their ass for a year, and none of this is making sense to them. The herd is shifting. All of these humans are saying something's up. We don't know what's going on. So they're reacting to the woo without thinking of it, okay? They're just reacting to the woo. When you get into mind woo, you don't react. So they're in body mind. They're in, hackles on the back of your neck, your hair standing up, you're a little bit freaked out, but something's telling you to be freaked out, but your mind hasn't caught up with that. You're just starting to get that little sketchy feeling about everything. But mind woo is where you start thinking about being in the woo and living in the woo in sci-fi world. So this is like an introduction before we land the plane. Fill out your immigration card now. Fill out your passport information on the little card that the stewardess will be handing to you in a minute. And do you have any fruit or vegetables? That kind of thing, because we're about to land in sci-fi world. As I say, in about 64 days. In the mind woo, in sci-fi world, you accept that you're going to come to some bad conclusions, that some of your conclusions will be inaccurate and wrong just because of the fluid nature of the information being presented to you. And the inability to validate a lot of it. And also the inability to validate a lot of your conclusions ahead of having to make a decision on that conclusion. So this is where it gets difficult for lots and lots of people. As I was saying, those people that do it well will develop a following. You're going to have to be very, very careful about that, especially in this time, because this is not like normal times, all right? So there will be retribution for making bad decisions in the midst of woo based on agendas, and then propagating that agenda out and forcing other people to or not forcing, but presenting other people with this your bad decision that was agenda driven. So it's like there will be consequences to otherwise innocent doctors and medical people as a result of other people whose relatives pass or have great difficulty from that, and they will not know they're part of the disorganized, moving around herd at the moment, and that energy that they've got will vent itself in anger, and they will go and do harmful things to these people that did harmful things to their relatives, and it's sort of an unthinking response. It's certainly not a response within the greater concept of what's going on. because this is not just a local isolated thing in my little bird with my little doctor and his little supply kit, right? And even if he is an evil bastard, he's likely, even if he is personally an evil bastard, this particular evil that he has done is very likely done in an unknowing fashion.
I'm going to split. I hope you enjoyed this show. 29 minutes and 57 seconds. We got almost half. 11:22. Yep. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna go. So let's see. End stream. And